these all can add up to a little bit more horsepower. Hello and welcome to another episode of Punto How To. My name is Andy and this is my 1998 Fiat Punto Cabriolet. In this video we're going to be looking at the air intake system. I'm going to be cleaning up the throttle body and setting it correctly. I'm going to be looking at this pipe, which on these cars always breaks down on this little concertina bit here. You cannot replace this pipe, they haven't made them for 20 years, so I'm going to show you how I repair it. And then on the actual air filter housing, the bolts or the inserts that secure the bolts into the air filter housing have all pulled out, so I'm going to be replacing those as well. So let's just dive straight into it and get these things repaired, cleaned up and sorted out.
We've bought a few items to help do these repairs, and I'll explain a bit more about these as we go through the video. So just kicking things off, this is the air filter housing. As you can see, we have a bit of a mishmash of different hardware. We've got bolts that have just been put in. This is a torque bolt for some reason with a captive nut on the other end. And this is the only one that still has its actual insert, but the insert is pulled right out, so it doesn't actually secure anything. And somebody's ground up a groove in the top of the bolt as well, so let's see what we can do to fix these issues. I have some of these inserts. These are used in 3D printing to put threaded inserts into new parts that you've made. I'm going to use these to fix the airbox by putting them into the airbox where it's damaged. Now the plastic airbox where the inserts would normally be pressed in has been completely stripped out, so I can just push these in by hand. So what I'm going to need to do is come up with a way to secure them in the plastic so that they don't turn when you tighten the bolts down into it. So I've bought some of this. This is JB World Plastic Bonder. It is a 2-part epoxy that sets black in colour, which means that it shouldn't look out of place in the airbox once it's set. Most of these items I bought off Amazon, so I will pop links in the description below so that you can follow them if you need to buy any of these things. There is a handy little tray in the front of the packaging that you can use to mix up a small batch of this. There's also a little wooden spatula included in the set. So what we do is we squeeze a little bit out into that tray. Make sure to pull the plungers on the syringe back again so that it doesn't keep trying to push its way out. And then with the little stick we're going to just mix it all up nice and thoroughly to make sure that we get a good mixture and that it's going to set and harden properly. I have threaded a bolt into the inserts to protect the insides of the thread so that they don't get covered in the glue, and then all I'm going to do is smear some of the glue in the hole, and then we'll set the insert in place with the bolt in as upright a position as we can possibly get it, and then leave that to set. It says it takes about 15 minutes to set, but it can be sanded after half an hour. Next up we're going to take a look at this pipe. This pipe is irreplaceable, you can't get hold of them new, and they all do this. The plastic hardens, becomes brittle, and then it cracks. Basically the engine can move but the air filter box cannot, and this little concertina bit is supposed to provide some relief for the movement of the engine, which of course makes it a weak spot and makes it subject to cracking as they get older. Somebody has put these old tyre wraps on which do absolutely nothing, so we're just going to cut them off for now and get rid of them, and we'll replace these with some proper clamps later on. We can now remove that pipe from the engine. Once off the car you can see just how badly split this pipe is. It's virtually broken in two. You will want to make sure the pipe is thoroughly cleaned, so you can use some engine degreasant or whatever else comes to mind.
So the first thing I'm going to do is use some normal super glue just to hold the edges together. So this isn't going to fix the pipe, it is just going to secure everything so that I can get it all nipped together. So let's start doing that. Just going to put a little along the edges here split. This is just a standard super glue. Just
once that was done, I put it to the side and allowed the glue to set. With the glue in the air filter box now all set, I removed the bolts that were protecting the threads. I used a knife to trim off any excess glue from around the holes. I then ran a tap down into the threads just to clean up any glue that might have got into the actual threads themselves.
Now that the super glue is set on this, we're going to move on to the next stage in the repair, which involves RTV sealant. I would recommend you use gloves for this next part. We're working down here on the floor and we have got this RTV sealant. Now, the way this works is basically, it's not like the epoxy that we had to mix up. We have just a single product here and we just squirt it on and then let it set. What we're going to do is we're going to get a bead of this sealant, quite thick, into all of these cracks.
This next part of the process took quite a while, but the main aim of the goal is to get the sealant down into all of the valleys of the concertinaed part of the pipe, and also to smear it all over the outside surfaces of the pipe where the rubber is cracking and breaking down. As it sets, it will set the same colour and have the same consistency as the rubber pipe that it's on, so you will not really be able to tell that it's been repaired. Just be really thorough in making sure that everything that's cracked is covered. Finally, it's time to turn our attention to the throttle body.
This is where this is the throttle body here on the top of the engine. These are the pipes that go into the cylinders. This is the intake here. The air comes in here, and you won't be able to see too well, but the air going into the engine, it looks fairly clean. Let's see if I can just get...
So this slot at the top is where air comes in and allows the engine to idle with the idle control valve. This here is the butterfly valve that opens when you press the throttle and allows air to enter the engine. The more it opens, the more air, the faster you go. As you can see, when I'm opening the valve, there's a lot of dirt and grime behind it. This white piece of plastic here is the adjuster for the throttle, and it was when I was looking at this I realised that it was badly adjusted and very slack. We'll sort that out when we put everything back together. There are 3 bolts securing the throttle body, one here, here and here.
If you're going to be doing any work on an engine that needs any sort of cleaning, you will need to get yourself a can of carb cleaner. Just make sure if you are using this, you're doing it in a well ventilated area so that you're not breathing in all of the fumes that come off it, because it is quite nasty stuff and it evaporates very quickly and gets into the air. So that's the throttle body removed. It's fairly clean on this side, but if I turn it round, you can see it's quite dirty on the back here, which is what we're going to be cleaning up. Carburetor cleaner, spray, EGR cleaner. This is a solvent that removes carbon deposits. Always best to use this in a well ventilated area, and just be aware that it can be flammable, and we're just going to spray that liberally into the back here just to clean up the intake. We're going to leave that for a moment. You can just use an old paintbrush just to agitate that cleaner around in there, work it into all of the grime. This valve, or this little electronic device here, this is the idle control valve, so that controls the speed at which the engine idles. Sensors in the engine detect the speed that the engine is spinning at, and then it can open this little valve up and let a little bit more air in, or close up and let less air in, to control the speed that the engine is idling at, stop it from stalling. If I remove this valve from reassembled throttle body. What I can do is clean this out as well. Be able to carefully remove that now. We can see that's really dirty. And if I tip that towards the camera, you can see it's just black with muck in there. So what we're going to do is try and clean that out a little bit as well. Same as before, bit of carb cleaner.
I would just recommend taking your time here. Don't be afraid to use plenty of carb cleaner, spray it all on quite liberally. You can use it to almost rinse the dirt off, and when you are done working it all in with a paintbrush, then wipe off any remaining dirt with a soft cloth.
Something I want to point out with this throttle body is that just when you open the butterfly, you have these little screws that hold the butterfly onto this spindle in the middle. Quite often these screws protrude much further than they need to, so a little thing that some people will do is just take a file and very carefully just file those off, just to create ever so slightly better airflow through the engine. It's not going to cause any, horsepower gains as such, but if you combine it with a lot of other things such as porting and polishing heads and doing other modifications, these all can add up to a little bit more horsepower. Just thought I would point it out to you as something that you could consider if you were trying to get a bit more performance out of your engine.
So we move ahead and reinstall the throttle body. We have some brand new bolts and washers for the air filter housing. So I just want to show you the adjustment on the throttle here. So at the moment, this is how it was set when I first started looking at this, and you can see all this movement in the throttle cable. Now that is because this clip here needs to be moved down. So if I pull it out, you will see that I can pull this white piece back, and it's got little ribs in this white piece, and I can insert that clip further along like so, and now there is no slack in that cable at all. Sorry, my hand was in the way. No slack in that cable at all, but most importantly, you need to make sure that the butterfly of the throttle body is closing properly when it is when it's relaxed. So that is now set correctly. We now have a proper working throttle body. Before, it may be that on full throttle the butterfly wasn't actually open fully, and therefore I wasn't actually getting full throttle with the accelerator pressed straight to the ground. We picked up some Jubilee clips for the induction pipe here. These were a grand total of £4. That was £1 each for each one of the clips. Just a quick tighten of them, and therefore we'll have no air leaks into the induction system now. All the air will be going through the air filter. And that is another job complete. I'm really pleased with this. It's gone really well. These bolts all hold in really nicely and tightly. There are no longer any cracks or holes in this pipe that would let air bypass the air filter. Obviously any air that does get past the air filter is unfiltered and therefore could introduce rubbish into the actual engine. And our throttle cable is now correctly set.
So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, if you've learned anything, or if you think that you might go ahead and do some of these repairs yourself, do let us know in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up, or maybe even consider subscribing. It really helps the algorithm know that we're doing our job properly. Of course, I'm really happy with the way this has gone. Hopefully you've appreciated the sort of finished article too. Now I'm going to rip it all apart, because in the next coming weeks I am going to be taking the cylinder head off this car and having a look at the inside of the engine and work out what may be going on with the state of the pistons. So we have bought ourselves a full gasket set and head bolts. So they're probably not going to be a how-to video, they're probably going to be more of just a documenting the process, so do tune in for that, and if you've got any little hints or tips, let me know in the comments as well. Until then, I will see you next time.
Now all we need to do is make sure that the car starts and runs. Oh bugger, the battery's dead again.
And the other thing is, I don't know what the other thing is. So even after being ultra careful, I still managed to get it all over my hands.